You are now listening to the Flurry podcast hosted by Marquise Rawls.
Another episode of the Flurry podcast, and the Spence and Garcia fight was last night, and I watched it, and it was a great fight. It sort of went exactly how I predicted it will go, and I'm actually on a nice streak on predicting fights. Because if you listen to my previous episodes, you would know that I got the Teofimo Lopez and Lomachenko fight wrong. I got the Santa Cruz and Tank Davis fight wrong, but I did not get this one wrong. Because I said, and you can quote this, I said in a few episodes back that Garcia is good, but he's going to fall in the big moment. He's not going to be able to go to that next level to win this fight because he doesn't have that next level. And what exactly happened? He fought like classic Danny Garcia. And this episode is going to be all about this fight. It's going to be all about this Spence versus Garcia fight. I'm going to try to be as detailed as I can because I actually took notes. I took notes during the fight of what I was watching, and I knew these notes is going to be pivotal to this episode. So let's get into my notes, right? So first and foremost, Errol Spence was using the in and out maneuver that Keith Thurman was using when he fought Danny Garcia. You come in, you land a couple shots here and there, then you back out. You don't let Danny Garcia have enough time to figure out your timing and counterpunch you while you're on the inside. You don't do that. You come in and come out. Keith Thurman knew it, and he did it, and it worked in his favor. And Errol Spence used that same tactic, but he did it better because he's bigger. He might be faster than Keith Thurman. He definitely has like better technique, and he was utilizing more body punching. So he was able to do a little more on the inside because of that. And that was what Spence did the entire fight. 2, Spence's jab, it was really good. It was effective. It helped him get on the inside when he's doing the in and out. Spence's jab helped him get on the inside, and he was throwing it a couple times. He didn't do it as much, but he would throw the jab when he was coming out just to let Danny know, if you're going to try to retaliate and come in, I got something waiting for you. And knowing Danny Garcia, where, like I said in the previous episode, I keep saying you have to listen to the previous episodes because I say so much that comes to fruition. Danny Garcia is a counterpuncher who wants to land punches and not get punched, right? So if he sees the opportunity to land a punch, but he's going to get punched, he's not going to take it. He's not going to take that risk, even though it's a calculated risk because Danny Garcia, he punches hard. And in this fight, I'm not going to lie, I think it might have shown that Spence might punch harder than him. Spence was landing bombs. You saw Danny Garcia's face? Yo, bro, I've never seen Danny Garcia's face so beaten and battered like that before. And you know Danny Garcia, one of the toughest people in boxing. I've never seen him go down a day in my life. I've never seen him hurt. I've never seen him like wobbled or anything. He might have got stunned for like a split second when he was facing Keith Thurman, but that was more of like a punch that I didn't see coming, so it caught me by surprise. And in this fight, Spence might have stunned him a couple times, but once again, it's one of those moments where I didn't see the punch coming and it caught me by surprise. So I'm a little shocked and stunned by it. So going back to my notes, round 4 was the turning point of the entire fight. The first 3 rounds was Spence and Garcia, more so, I can't even say feeling each other out because I'm not going to lie, Spence, he started coming out hot since round 1. So did Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia, he came in, he was throwing at a good rate. He tried to use his jab, but his reach advantage, he didn't really have one. He didn't have a longer reach. So he tried to use it, and he threw a lot of jabs. He threw a little bit less than Spence, but he landed significantly less. So it wasn't the fact that he wasn't throwing the jab. It's just that he wasn't using it effectively. It wasn't effective in the fight for him to do anything against Errol Spence, because Errol Spence was the taller guy. He's the longer guy. He's the bigger guy. And so the first 3 rounds was Errol Spence and Danny Garcia. They're basically just testing the chin of each other. Both of them was landing good big shots. Garcia was landing. If you know Garcia, you know he has this one famous trick of his where he does a little feint, then he comes over with the left hook, and he landed that a couple times in the first 3 rounds. And you know, Spence, he always finds ways to land his left hook and his right hook and everything, his straight and everything, which is very, very good. So both of them were landing a lot of big shots. You know, they was testing the chin out of each other. But then round 4 happened, and that's when the fight turned to Errol Spence, right? It turned to Errol Spence mostly because I think he turned up the pressure a little bit, but also because Danny Garcia, he went back to the classic old Danny Garcia that he wasn't really doing that much of in the first 3 rounds. In the first 3 rounds, he seemed to be more risk-taking than he usually is. Not saying he took a significant amount more risk than he usually does in his fights, but it seemed like he was throwing a little bit more than he usually does. And this is just me using my eyeball test. He was throwing a little bit more than he usually does. He was, you know, willing to trade a little bit more. He was willing to fight on the inside just a little bit more. But in round 4, he went back to the classic Danny Garcia where he's a little bit more conservative with his punches. He went back to his counter punching at heart mentality, to where he's waiting for the perfect shot and trying to use his timing as his main focus of offense, right? And that was a failed game plan, because if you recall, that's the same thing that Mikey Garcia tried to do. Now, Danny Garcia, he didn't lose as badly as Mikey Garcia did, because Mikey Garcia, he got outclassed clearly, where he had nothing going for him. Danny Garcia, he had a little bit of success throughout the entire fight. It just wasn't enough to win rounds, right? So another thing that I have in my notes is pivotal. Not well organized, but they're pivotal. Another thing was Spence's defense, fucking incredible. And I don't know if people have raved about Errol Spence's defense, but this man has, I swear, is one of the best defenses in boxing. This, like, when he put his arms up, it starts like head movement and everything and moving. Yo, it's like Fort Knox trying to hit this guy. This guy is coming in and he got his arms up already. Then out of nowhere, he hits you 2 times. Then his arms is right back up, like before you even realize that he hit you. His defense, incredible. That was a key factor in this fight, was the defense, because, like I said, Garcia was landing some big shots in the early rounds, but then once Spence got the arms up, he got the defense up, he started partially blocking them punches, and then as the fight went on, he started fully blocking them. Garcia had nothing. He had nothing. And one thing I will give Danny Garcia credit for was his body punching, right? Errol Spence, I nicknamed Errol Spence myself the body snatcher. Okay, you can go back to a previous episode of mine a few months ago where I have it in the title, Errol Spence, the body snatcher. I gave him that nickname, the body snatcher, because he comes in and he rips them body shots and he snatches your soul. He snatches your soul through every single body shot. And Danny Garcia, being the tough guy that he is, he's not going to go down by some body shots. But Danny Garcia tried matching the volume of punches to the body with Errol Spence. He couldn't, match it up to par because it's Errol Spence, but he tried, and it was a good effort, and he landed some good body shots, and that let me show that Errol Spence, he could take punches too. He could take punches. If you didn't think that with his fight against Sean Porter, he couldn't take punches because Sean Porter is not that big of a puncher. He's not really known for being that big of a puncher, but Danny Garcia is. He's known for being a heavy hitter, heavy-handed guy who comes and he knocks people out. And he landed a lot of good body shots, a lot of good punches to the head, right to the temple too. And Spence, he just took everything. He took everything and kept applying the pressure. He showed supremacy in this fight. Back to my notes, which the next one is literally what I just said. Spence, he applied the pressure. The pressure, it was too much. It's too much. Danny Garcia, he looked like a piece of steak that you put inside a pressure cooker and you turn it on 400 degrees fucking Fahrenheit and you push on. And Danny Garcia was that steak, and Errol Spence was the pressure cooker who applied so much pressure that Danny Garcia, it looked like he kind of gave up towards like round 10 or so, or maybe I must have, interpreted, his body language a little bit wrong. Maybe he didn't give up. Maybe he just knew that there's nothing else I can do, so let me just cruise through the rest of the fight. That is not giving up. That is just you realizing, okay, let me just do the respectful and professional thing and just get the fight over with. Giving up is basically saying, I'm not even going to try no more. Danny Garcia, he still tried. He still tried his best, but he just knew, I'm not on this guy's level. And I respect it. So let's see. I do have in my notes that Danny Garcia was landing a lot of sneaky shots. He was landing a lot of sneaky shots because I think from round like 4 to like 7 or 8, I got to look at the stats again, but it showed that Spence was outlanding Garcia and he was obviously outworking him. But it showed that Garcia was still landing a lot more punches than I was physically seeing. I even had to run it back a couple times to be like, he landed how many punches? He landed that many punches that round? Okay, let me watch it again. Then watch it again, and you see like the little sneaky hooks to the body, the little like sneaky little jab he had on the inside that it was landing, it was counting. It wasn't really doing much. It didn't really have the force and the power and the snap behind it that a usual Danny Garcia punch has, where he puts his whole shoulder and body into it. It didn't have that type of momentum and force to it, but it was just, sneaky little shots that he was throwing, that was landing and scoring, but still was not enough. But also, I also have to take into consideration that maybe the pressure that Spence was applying was probably making it look better than we all thought it actually was. Because like I said, Garcia was landing more punches than I thought he was landing. I thought he was landing less punches, but the stats saying he's landing more. So I'm looking a little bit closer, like maybe the fight is a little bit closer than I think it is. Maybe the margin of scoring, it's smaller than I think it is. So that I started thinking this could be a classic case of someone is more active. They are outworking someone, but they're not actually doing more as far as landing more and as far as doing more damage. But as the rounds went on, you realize, nope, Spence was doing more and he was causing more damage, and he was landing more and he was doing more. So that whole case of, oh, Spence only won because he was the aggressor. No, yes, he was the aggressor, but he was actually doing more. He landed more. He had he did everything better. He did more damage. He literally he outclassed Danny Garcia in every single category of the boxing checklist that you can think of. Errol Spence did it better than Danny Garcia. There's not one thing that Danny Garcia did that was better than Errol Spence. His trunks wasn't even better than Errol Spence's trunks. His shoes wasn't even better. Errol Spence even tied his boxing laces better than Danny Garcia. That's how critical it was. That's how critical it was. Back to my notes. What is next? I did say that Danny Garcia, his trick, like I said earlier, the trick where he feints and he throws the big left hook, which I think he's like sort of famous for. He caught a lot of people like that. He catches a lot of people like that. It was effective against Keith Thurman. I think he might have stunned Keith Thurman by doing that. He caught Danny Garcia, not Danny Garcia. He caught Sean Porter with that punch. He knocked out a few people with that same punch and that same trick of feinting and throwing the left hook that they don't like really see coming. By like round 6 or 7, it wasn't working. Because like I said, Errol Spence, he upped his defense. It was catching him in the first 3 rounds. Then like the next 3, he was like partially blocking it. Then after round 6 or 7, he was fully blocking it. It wasn't landing. It just wasn't landing. And I think that discouraged Danny Garcia, because the looping hooks for Danny Garcia, where he puts his whole force, like that's his bread and butter. That's how he knocks everyone the fuck out. If my signature knockout punch is not doing nothing to you, bro, what else do I have? What else do I have? And Danny Garcia, he is a high class fighter, but we have to also think he's not on the level of Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford, or he's not on the level of, this fight showed he's not on Sean Porter's level, because Sean Porter, he put up a better effort against Spence. He's not on Keith Thurman's level because Keith Thurman beat him. So Danny Garcia doesn't have more than those people in his arsenal, in his offensive arsenal. So once he runs out of tools, he runs out of his game plan, it's nothing left. It's absolutely nothing left. That's almost like in Dragon Ball Z. If you watch Dragon Ball Z, right? If Goku uses his Kamehameha, which is his bread and butter, that's his bread and butter. That's what he used to take out so many enemies. He used his Kamehameha, and then Jiren, he just takes a Kamehameha and just starts eating it like a fucking apple. You're like goddamn, he like, that's my signature move. He did that? Nah, I'm good. I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna just head out. Like the SpongeBob meme. He took my signature move. Now I'm gonna just head out. That's what Danny Garcia should have did. But like I said, he's a class act. He's not gonna quit. He's not gonna give up. He's gonna see the fight through, and he was tough enough to get through it. Another thing was that Danny Garcia, he respected the power. I think he respected the power. I don't want to say he respected it a little too much, because like I said, Spence, he hits hard as fuck, and he might have stunned or at least shocked Danny Garcia a couple times during the entirety of the fight, where it wasn't a punch or hits where Danny Garcia was on the verge of being knocked out, but it was definitely punches where Danny Garcia is like, oh wow, that I felt that one. And I don't know if I'm gonna trade with that guy. I don't know if I could get hit with that punch too many times. So you're not respecting it too much. You're respecting it at the right amount, right? But that right amount that you're respecting it causes you to not want to come in and dig deep and go to war with that guy. And even though Danny Garcia, he's not that type of fighter anyway. He's not the type of fighter where, like a Sean Porter, where he's willing to go in the trenches with you. He wants to take you to deep waters, and he wants to fucking batter you at the bottom of the goddamn fucking ocean. That's not Danny Garcia. He wants to stay above sea level. He might dip his little toes in there a little bit, but he wants to stay above sea level and beat you at his own pace. He's not willing to get down and dirty with you. He's not. So that's why him respecting the power, it's a downfall for him, because his respecting the power is going to mean I'm going to try to avoid the power all night. Whereas Sean Porter, he respects your power by saying, yo, I'm going to charge you head on at 200% now. And I'm going to come at you and throw everything I have at you. It's just a different mindset, but they both respect the power. It's just a different how they react to it, right? So back to my notes. I have in my notes round 7, Spence and Garcia was getting in the pocket. In round 7, I think round 7 might have been the best round, because that was really when Spence and Garcia, like, both of them really stayed for like at least like half the round. Both of them stayed in the middle of the ring and they stayed in the pocket, and they was throwing and they was trading and they was going in. And I think that was Danny Garcia's best chance of winning. And Danny, he was throwing. He was actually throwing. He was actually throwing because in that round and in those moments, if my recollection is that good, my memory is that good, Spence was going for the body a little bit more in that round, which allowed Danny Garcia to throw more headshots, and he landed some good headshots, but they was going at it, and that really showed Errol Spence's specialness. That showed that he could enter the matrix. He entered the matrix in round 7, and I felt so good about it. I felt so good about it because I think I gotta explain the matrix, right? For any new listeners, or for people who you probably listen to a few episodes but you don't really know what it is. The matrix is basically, it's exactly what it is. Neo entered the matrix and he was a god. So you got to have a god level mindset to enter the matrix. Lomachenko entered the matrix against plenty people and he turned god level. Terrence Crawford entered the matrix against a few people and he was god level. I've even seen Keith Thurman enter the matrix against Danny Garcia and against Sean Porter, and it was like god level. It's basically when you get in this mode where it feels like you look at this guy and he looks invincible. He's not getting hit with a lot of the big shots. Yeah, it doesn't mean that he's not getting hit at all. It's just that he is blocking and ducking and slipping enough punches, and he's landing at a very high, or at least a very good rate. So he's moving, blocking, and punching at the same time, not countering, not I block then punch, or I slip then punch. No, it's I'm slipping and punching at the same time. That's entering the matrix. And like I said, Lomachenko does it where he's moving, he rotates around you or pivots to your side, avoiding your punches and hitting you at the same time. Terrence Crawford does it where he sways left and right and he's throwing his looping hooks at the same time. And Keith Thurman does it that same way. And Errol Spence, he did that. He was ducking and swaying and land and just rip into the body at the same time. So he entered the matrix, and man, it was fantastic. It was so fantastic. That Errol Spence, he could beat Terrence Crawford. He could. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but that Errol Spence has the best chance. He has the best chance. The best chance of beating Terrence Crawford. Because I still have Terrence Crawford beating everyone. I still have Terrence Crawford as the number one pound for pound. He's going to beat Spence. He's going to beat whoever they put in front of him. But that Errol Spence, when he entered the Matrix, oh man. And he only did it for one round. Right? So I'm not going to I'm not gonna big him up too much, but he entered the Matrix, and for that one round, he was Neo. He was Neo, and Danny Garcia, sad little agent, had to suffer through all that. Fantastic round it was, and that showed that Errol Spence, he was born for this. He was born to be a boxer, naturally gifted boxer. So back to my notes. Some of this stuff is kind of basic or obvious. Errol Spence outworked Danny Garcia. Spence has tremendous power. He's too good, stuff like that. The last two things I have in my notes is, one of them is something that I always said, and many other people have said as well, is Danny Garcia's like his Achilles heel, his weakness, right? Besides the fact that he is very conservative with his punches, he is very flat-footed, meaning he doesn't move around the ring as smoothly or as effectively as he should, or I don't even know if I should say as he could, because I've never really seen him do it before. He gets into this mode where he just plants his feet down and he just stands there, and Danny Garcia, being who he is, he's waiting and trying to use his timing to counter, but he's just standing in that one spot. So with him standing in that one spot, and Spence is using the tactic of, I come in, land a couple, then I come out, it makes it a little bit easier to be aggressive and to take more risk against a person like that. And Danny Garcia, he's just too flat-footedness for this. He was too flat-footed to fight someone like an Errol Spence. You got to be able to be a lot mobile on your feet. Not saying that Garcia is terrible or bad at ring movement, but the placement that he puts himself in, he needs to work on it. He needs to work on having some ring generalship in there. I think that would have really helped him, because a lot of times in boxing, it's not about you like landing the punch or finding the right opening. Sometimes it's really about you just being in the right position in the ring to get a good punch. That's what it is a lot of times. If you know how to be in a good position for a punch, then the opportunity is going to come. It doesn't come just by itself. No, it comes because you know, in this position, I can land certain punches that I've been working on. So I'm going to put myself in this position. Simple as that. And Danny Garcia, being flat-footed, he doesn't know how to do that very, very well. He does do it. He does know how to do it, and he's good at it, but it's levels to the shit. Like Meek Mill said, it's levels to this shit. Okay? And the last thing I have in my notes, and the last thing I'm going to talk about regarding this fight was what Danny Garcia said in the PBC fight camp. Danny Garcia said that he's going to take more calculated risk in this fight. Did he take calculated risk? Yes, he did. Did he take more risk? No, he did not. He didn't take more risk. He took different risks. Now, it may not make sense as me first saying it, but hear me out, right? Now, what Danny Garcia usually does, right? He usually would use a jab or a feint that set up a big shot, right? Doing that, it's a risk, because you could risk the person, calling your bluff on a feint and coming at you. You could risk someone countering your big shot, or they even like counter your jab or whatever, right? Danny Garcia in this fight, like I said, he didn't use his jab effectively, and the trick of him using his feint, then the left hook, it wasn't really working, so he stopped using that as much, and he just started swinging for the fences a little bit more. than I'm used to seeing him, right? Now, it's still a risk, and it's still a calculated risk because it's Danny Garcia, who has a good chin, and he's quick, and he could slip a punch or block a punch as good as anyone, right? So it's still a calculated risk. And also at the same time, Errol Spence respected Danny Garcia's power as well. Let me not say he didn't respect the power. Errol Spence, he felt the power, and he also felt, I don't want to get hit by this punch too many times, right? So when Danny Garcia would try to establish some offense, that's when Spence, he would use his defense, and he would, try to position himself better to, swing it in his favor, right? So Danny Garcia coming in with a lot of just no jab or no feints, and he just is coming and swinging for the fences, and he tried to get on the inside, and he did a couple times, and he would sometimes just come in lunging sometimes. Not like huge big lunges like a Deontay Wilder lunge, but he would come in lunging. And that's a calculated risk. It's a calculated risk because, like I said, Spence, he's gonna back up from that. Because he doesn't want to get hit by the big punch. He's going to back up from it and position himself better. And also Danny Garcia, he could slip a counter or block a counter, or maybe not. But it's a calculated risk for him, a risk that I felt like he should have took a lot more of, because a lot of them did land. And sometimes he would just come in lunging with a straight, which landed. He would like split the guard a little bit. He would do like high punches to Spence's temple that was landing. So the risks, they were there and they were calculated, but he didn't take more risks. He just took different risks. It's just different. And they worked. Some did, some didn't. But this fight really just showed that Spence is just on a different level. He's on a different level. He's on a level that I don't think Danny Garcia has seen someone on this type of level before. And I don't know if he will ever get a fight with someone. Well, no, let me stop, because if he moves up to 154, I think with his status and just his skill set alone, he could get like a Charlo or like a Jarrett Hurd or like someone on that caliber. But even those people, they're not as talented as Errol Spence. Errol Spence is special. Right? He's not gonna see someone as good as Errol Spence, but he knew, like, this is something I've never seen before. Like, this is different. The fight was fantastic. Let me figure out some of the judges' scorecards real quick, then I will give my scorecard of what I scored it. All right, I got the scorecard. So 2 judges scored the fight 116 to 112 for Errol Spence, and 1 judge scored it 117 111 for Errol Spence. I scored the fight 117 111. I gave Danny Garcia 3 rounds, and that's actually me being pretty good. That's me being generous. I can't recall which specific 2 rounds they are, but I remember there's 2 rounds that in my mind that Danny Garcia, he took those rounds and he won those rounds. And then was 1 round where it could have swayed either way, and I feel like it swayed more to Danny Garcia's side, because I think he just landed a couple punches that were, a little bit bigger. There was it might have been the same round too, where Danny Garcia, he landed a punch on Spence, and Spence, it looked like Spence, he got like stunned from it. And like I said, not stunned as in my legs is wobbling and I'm about to go down, but stunned as in I didn't see the punch coming and it caught me by surprise, and I'm a little shocked by it. And he felt the power. So that's how I scored the fight. 116 112. I'm not too mad at it. If I like watch the entire fight again, there's probably a fourth round that I could find for him. But on the first watch, I can only see 3 rounds. So good judging. Good judging. Very good. Pretty good judging. Okay. So that is all for this episode. If you haven't seen the fight, please go watch the fight, man. Please go watch the fight. Maybe next episode. Well, no, next week is the Anthony Joshua fight, which I'm going to talk about. Maybe next week I would talk about the undercards of the Spencer Garcia, because they were some really great undercards. I really enjoyed the entire card altogether. And maybe next week I'll talk about it. Maybe I'll just focus on the Joshua fight, depending on how that fight goes, depending on if Joshua, if he just outclasses his opponent like he did the second time against Andy, or if it's like a real war. Depending on how that fight goes, it would depend on how I'll do the episode. But that's all for this episode of the Flurry podcast.